You're a mum, you're a mum, you're a busy mum. Come listen to the Busy Mum podcast. Life hacks and inspiration for the busy modern mum.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Busy Mum podcast. Just before we get into this interview, I will be releasing new episodes each Monday morning, just like clockwork. Also, if you don't want to miss an episode, subscribe to my iTunes channel, The Busy Mum Podcast. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. Just search The Busy Mum and you should find me there. Now, a word from our sponsor. Do you find that you hop in the shower, you're enjoying the lovely hot water dripping down all over your body, relaxation, no interruptions from the kids, and you think, yeah, I'm going to shave my legs now. You just pick up your razor and it's in just the most rubbish condition. It's rusted, it's full of soap scum or shaving cream, or even your husband has grabbed it and shaved his face and not cleaned it out. Gross. But you clean it out a little bit, you give it a go, and you end up cutting your legs, and now they look worse than when they were just a little bit hairy. Well, now thanks to Pins, the latest and greatest women's leg shaving company, you can have them delivered straight to your door. New razors all the time. But not only do they have razors with 6 blades plus 4 extra cartridges in the pack, but they also have a clear shave gel, which is slippery as hell and moisturizes to boot. The gel also allows you to see exactly what you are shaving, which is great for those pits and private bits. I've been using them now for at least 6 months and am loving it. Check them out at www.pinnspins.com.au. And don't forget to use the Busy Mum podcast code, Busy Mum, to get 15% off your first purchase. So Sarah, welcome to the Busy Mum podcast. How are you this morning?
Thank you, Jackie. I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Excellent. Can you just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do?
So I am a Kiwi, but I reside in Australia. I've been here for quite some time, and I am a pleasure coach. I work with women who want to enhance pleasure in all aspects, not only sexually, but also in all areas of their life, and slow down and live a more mindful, purposeful and enjoyable life, and sort of, escape from the hustle of grinding and working really hard, and instead enjoying what we have and who we are instead of who we think we should be.
So how did you get into that line of work? So what were you doing before you became, it's called a pleasure coach, is that correct?
I call myself a pleasure coach. There's only one other person I've met who's named themselves that. I've been a coach for quite a long time. I was a coach in the pre-internet era. So I have been a coach for going on 15 years. Mm-hmm. And so I got into coaching before it was even popular, and before it was even a known thing. Sorry, is my son in the background.
That's all right.
And so I got into it before it was even a known thing, but I obviously got into it for different reasons. I wasn't ever determined to be a pleasure coach. I just wanted to learn about coaching for myself and just to better my own life, really. Mm-hmm. And obviously one thing led to another. And I ended up studying quite a few different modalities, the body ecology diet. I went on to study, become a Reiki master, and I took a really holistic approach, and I still do today. And my coaching career over the last decade and a half has really unfolded. And so now my work is really quite unique because I've got a lot of experience and education and wisdom to draw upon, which I really make my own. So a lot of my work is very unique, and I like to think it's different. So all my work has really developed from me being the catalyst and wanting to change my life in that way. And I find that to be the case with a lot of coaches. We seek out what we most need to know. Mm-hmm. And so my work today has been a gradual transition from what I've most needed to know throughout the last few years, extending even further than that.
I remember when I was in my early 20s, I did some life coaching, and that was pretty much before the internet and things like, Upwork, where you could outsource some of the menial tasks and stuff like that. And I found it was really helpful for me to just get my head around what I was doing at the time. So yes, I've had a little bit of coaching myself as well.
Yeah, I think it's important for young people to actually understand the cognitive processes of the mind and how we think and how we feel and how the inner workings of our world extend to the external world.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, just describe for us a day in the life of you. What's your typical day like?
My days are always very different, and I don't set goals. I don't believe in goals, and I don't have structure. I'm not one for structure, although I do schedule in calls and things like that, but I'm very spontaneous, so my days are always very interchangeable. Mm-hmm. And I'm never set to a certain schedule aside from calls with clients or podcasts. I have a podcast called the Pleasure Rising podcast, and so when I have guests on, I obviously have set times that I meet up with them, but my day will always start with something that's really enjoyable. Obviously, I have a son as well, so my 2-year-old, he's nearly 3, we'll generally spend a bit of the morning together, and I'll do my own thing as well. Sometimes he goes to daycare or to his nana's house, but not always, and I'm very open. If he doesn't want to go one day, I just let him hang around while I work. And throughout the day, it's really if I don't have the calls with clients or podcasting, I'll sometimes do some work, but not always. Maybe I'll read a book, or we'll take a walk, or get a coffee, or I'll have a bath. And I find living the pleasure-based lifestyle that I teach my clients as well, living it really has been one of the greatest things for me as a business owner and a mum, because I am much happier when I don't set goals, and when I'm not rushing, and when I'm not strategically trying to align everything to a T. So every day is different, but majority of the day, 80% would be pleasure-based activities, whether they be by myself or spending time with my partner or my son, and then 20% would be work-based activities.
Okay. I'm one for always setting goals, and I have a book of to-do lists, so I'm a little bit of the opposite, and I think my pleasure comes from ticking off those to-do list tasks, and I find that gives me great pleasure. So I don't know if I could live the same lifestyle that you live, but it sounds lovely to be honest with you. It sounds, if you're doing only 20% work and 80% you're just doing what you want to do, it sounds lovely and relaxing, to be honest. That sounds like a holiday every day.
Yeah, because the problem is we've been taught to strive and to hustle, and certainly there is satisfaction when you finish something, but not always. I find for me, the satisfaction is in the day. Who knows what tomorrow may bring, and all we have is the now. So to enjoy each day and to enjoy the process. So at the moment I'm writing a book, a novel. It's an erotic novel, and instead of thinking about the end result, about finishing the work, I am thinking about the process, the thing that I'm doing right now, the very chapter that I am writing right now. And I find great satisfaction in that, and it allows me to be really present, and it allows me to raise my happiness by so much, because I'm not striving to something, and I'm not stressing and struggling, and I'm not putting unreasonable demands on myself. I'm just allowing what is to be and unfold as it does. And what I've found is when it unfolds, it always unfolds better than how I could have imagined if I was really stressing about that novel and about writing. It unfolds a whole lot better, because stress changes how we think, and it changes how we react and respond. So things just flow a lot easier when life is a holiday. When you're on holiday, it's funny because, you are enjoying yourself, but more often than not, more good things come to you. So
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if it rains when you're on holiday because you're on holiday. That's what I always find.
yeah, absolutely. So
Still go swimming in that pool when it rains. It's like, I'm here, I'm on holiday, I'm still going to do it.
And this is the thing, is we have been conditioned by society to think that life is meant to be really hard, and we are meant to achieve and acquire. And, not only does it affect our personal, our own self and our stress levels and how we feel about ourselves and our body, but also our children and how we respond to them when we are really stressed and in a state of rush and hurry. And but then it extends to obviously our family and friends and clients, and then the earth as well. So the rate of consumerism and the rise of plastic is a prime example about the fact that we have lost touch with the present moment, and enjoying what is, and put our emphasis on striving towards speed and ease, convenience, which are all, not necessarily good things, but we've been conditioned to believe that a lot of these things are. So it really is like a perspective reframe to come to this place of pleasure and of making every day a holiday.
Okay, I have another question for you. So your son is nearly 3. What are your views on sending him to like the traditional type school, or would you go down the path of homeschooling?
No, I wouldn't homeschool, just because the majority of schooling I find is the social element. So for schooling, the problem is obviously towards achievement and towards goals and towards meeting deadlines for homework, etc. And also isolating and just making schooling the main priority. Like, we have made work and career like the main priority in our lives as adults. Like, schooling for children is their main priority. So I'm happy to send him to school. I will also teach him, though, that he doesn't need to finish the homework, and I'm happy to speak with the teacher. And he should have
not compulsory.
hobbies and things, outside school, and it's no big deal if he doesn't want to go. So, yes, he is going to be different to other people, but because he's already different, he takes initiative, he's very confident, he's very outgoing, and he does go to daycare 2 days a week, so he still has the social element as well at the moment. So I think he's going to be in a really good position in a few years to think for himself, and that is what I really want him to do. Is it doesn't matter what he does, I just want him to be able to think for himself and think independently to the masses, because a lot of what we do and what we think is not conducive to our happiness, really.
Yeah, I got a letter from my daughter's school saying that I must explain why she's had these 5 days off recently. And like, part of it was that we were visiting family, and the other part of it was we just had a mummy-daughter date day, which I think was quite healthy for her mental health. And I kind of hate the fact that I have to explain to them why my child was not at school for those days. It's not like she was missing like weeks at a time. But just expect that if you're going to hold him away from school for a little while, you get these letters.
That's okay. They're up for a tough fight. I have I'm an admitted lawyer as well, so they have a tough fight. I have a Bachelor of Laws, so they can say what they like. It's I would probably just be honest with them.
Yeah, and that's right. I mean, if they're going to fight you, or even me, about going to see family interstate, or spending time with your daughter when clearly she wants to spend time with you. But if they say, "Oh no, sorry, you can't do that," I'll be like, "Well, actually, I can." And it's not harming her grades. And, if she wants to spend time with me, like, there's going to come a point where she's going to not want to see me for a while, I think. There's going to be probably like a 5-year period where she'll be like, "Mum, you are so not cool right now. I just,
Exactly.
stay away from me. So I want to take these days as they come because they're going to be few and far between. We've already got another one lined up actually because she's got a school excursion in December, but she doesn't like boats, so she's really not keen to go. And I said, "Oh, would you want to have another like mummy-daughter day?" And she went, "Yeah." So I'll probably take her to the movies again, and we'll go out for lunch. So, it's all that nice stuff. It's a pleasure, isn't it? It's all the pleasure.
It is. And I think that's really important that she has that time with you right now. Like you said, who knows what the future may bring and how she responds to you when she's 15.
I know, when that puberty kicks in, all those hormones racing. What's one of the best bits of advice you've received?
I think this is a really good question. And there's so much advice that I've received throughout the years. And I don't think I could give any advice when I think about it. Somebody told me many years ago, it doesn't matter what happens to you, it's what you do about it that matters. And that's always held true. It doesn't really matter what happens to us in life. And in fact, because I'm a reader and I've read a lot about so many different types of people. And everyone has suffered hardships. Everyone's gone through hard times, and it doesn't matter about really what happens to us because it's always about how we respond. And some of us retreat, and some of us fight, and some of us just get on with it. And then there's some of us who actually turn it into a pleasurable lifestyle. But it really doesn't matter what happens to us in business or life, and we all have struggles, and 99% of us start with nothing. So it's always about what we do with our life. And it's really difficult to say the best advice because there's been so many wonderful pieces of advice. And I think just one last point on this is, sure, it doesn't matter what happens to you, it's what you do about it. But it's also about who you become. And simply trying to create your life based on fear or stress or lack is really challenging. So you really need to become the type of person that is going to be able to move through any of the wins and the problems that life gives you.
Okay, yeah. My mum always said, Jackie, you've got to respond, not react. Because they're two very different things. I think when you respond to something, you do take a few moments just to consider your thoughts. Whereas when you react, it's like anger, sadness, or some craziness coming out of you. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that comes back to, are you responding from a state of calm or are you reacting from a state of stress? Always check back. And I never make decisions from a place of stress. I would just rather not, because any decision made from a place of stress is going to be the wrong decision.
So when you're stressed, how do you become not stressed? What do you do?
So because when we get stressed, we have we default in our thinking and we don't think about anything that can actually be really helpful. Often we default to coffee, alcohol, smoking, whatever that may be, getting angry at our children. But I have this thing which I teach. It's called a pleasure list. And the pleasure list is there for mostly it's there for just general everyday life, but it's also there for times of stress. So on the pleasure list, what you do is you write down all the things that you really enjoy doing, having, being, feeling. And they're not necessarily going shopping, buying a new Ferrari, buying a house. That doesn't have to be anything like purchasing. It could be running a bath, scattering some rose petals in there, putting some lavender oil. It could be doing some yoga outside in the sunshine. All things you can do, and preferably they're things that you can do without too much effort, and they're adaptable things. So some of the things you can do by yourself, and some things you should be able to do with with children around. So it might be making a herbal tea and putting your feet up with a foot mask on and a book, And so some of them should be about doing alone, and some you can have people around with you, so that when you default into stress, you've got strategies and ways to quickly get out of them. Because if you just simply stay in that state of stress, it's going to snowball, and it is going to create more stress and more harm. So obviously, if there's some learning there within the stress, definitely go into it. But more often than not, the stress I find from women, especially, is minor stress. So it could be, I had a really bad morning with my child. They wouldn't get in the car. They wouldn't go to daycare. Then there was all this traffic on the way home. Now I'm really stressed. I'm uptight. Like, that is something that's a little bit out of your control. So you can just default to the pleasure list, not default to, eating a box of chocolates as an example.
Could that also be on the pleasure list, though? Like, maybe just one chocolate.
Yeah, like, if that's your thing, definitely. Like, you can have, like, go and get, like, a yummy, I love chocolate, get a yummy chocolate cake. But when you're stressed, and if you're stressed a lot, you don't want defaulting to
You'll end up the size of the house.
Yeah, so you want them to be really healthy and really productive, and that they get you out of that state of stress and into a state of pleasure.
Okay, cool. And moving on from pleasure, where do you get your entertainment from?
I like everything. So I'm a history buff. I love history. I love film, fashion, like, all of it to me goes together, especially like a good movie. I love reading, absolutely love reading. I love TEDx talks, YouTube. Like, I am always like listening, watching, learning from somewhere, like whether that be a podcast or a movie, because I'm so inspired by so many different things and my life is so full. I get so much inspiration from so many different avenues.
Beautiful. And moving on, what is your go-to dinner? This is classic.
It's funny. My partner's a chef and he does the cooking. So I'm really fortunate because he makes so many nice things. But traditionally, like, my go-to dinner is definitely a cheese platter. So crackers, cheese, like 3 or 4 different cheeses, some nice fruit, olives, nuts, a glass of wine. Like, cheese platter is just my go-to. It's very romantic.
It is very romantic.
You take your time. You really enjoy each thing. There's a lot of different items. It's very
it's like an adult picky plate.
Yeah, it's calming. And I find that having this with my partner, eating a cheese platter with my partner for dinner and a glass of wine, some candles, it's very romantic and it's a nice slow dinner.
Yeah, I've never even thought of doing a cheese platter for dinner, to be honest with you. I've always, I suppose it's the way I was raised, was, meat and 3 veg, or it has to kind of look like a dinner, not like a party. Because, like, cheese plates for me, like when you have guests over and stuff, but, like, you can take it to that really romantic place, and I like that. So I really like that. What's one area of your life you would like to improve?
Well, I'm working, being the key word, matching my business to my period, to my cycles, because there's different cycles in the woman's time of the month, and different times in the month mean different things. So when I'm bleeding, I really want to be able to slow down and not have calls and coaching calls or podcast interviews or interviews. And I really want to make that a time of rest, because I do feel like as women, we should be in alignment and with our bodies. And so many of us have ignored our hormones. And we
get busy. We push it to the side and go, well, we can deal with you later, have a few Panadol and keep plowing on.
Yeah, and unfortunately, again, like, that's what we've been told and taught to do or conditioned by society. But in fact, I really like, and have been doing this for a few months, I really like the idea of it, and it feels right when I really do it and I'm able to do it. It is challenging, though, because sometimes, I do have things to do on the week that I do get my period. And so I find generally most of the month is really good. It's just when I have my period, sometimes things pop up that I can't control, which involve like doing some sort of lifting or moving, like lifting my son home from the shops because he can't walk, and
He just lost the ability to walk.
Yeah, like he's tired, he wants to have a nap, and so he's just like, and I understand. So he's tired and wants to have a nap. So sometimes things pop up, but I'm definitely working on that, and I'm loving it so far. So
I think like the first step is to be aware of it, and that's, once you're aware of something, you can flow your attention to it, and it becomes better. So it's very interesting. You are the very first person who has said that on my podcast, and I think you might be around the 40th person I've interviewed. So very unique.
Well, I'm not. I don't really work on goals or anything like that,
Yeah.
I'm very just go with the flow, but that is something, it's not a goal, but it's definitely something I'm working on.
What's your greatest fear and how do you deal with it?
So I really am fearful of death, and I kind of don't want to talk about it. It's actually like a really deep fear. So
Yeah.
I really don't want to go into it. Like I could give you a superficial answer and say like, I don't know. I don't know what a superficial answer. I didn't go there, so
Yeah, I'm a bit scared of death as well, and I don't really want to talk about it. So let's move on to our quick questions, and then you can get on with your day. The first question is,
thanks.
what website have you signed up to recently that you actually find value in receiving their emails or information?
It's so funny you ask that because actually I don't really find value in emails and I don't really read emails. So nothing, because it's funny because earlier you said about entertainment. I get so much substance from entertainment, but emails, I find them to be really shallow and lacking depth. So I don't really sign up, like I don't really read any email consistently.
So are you more to follow certain websites or people? Do you follow any people?
For substance, occasionally, like maybe every 6 to 9 months, I will check out Alexandra Franzen's blog, and she's a writer. She's really cool. She's really down to earth. But that's not that regularly. And in regards to people, the people that I do follow are generally on Instagram, and that's more for like fashion, and people that are sort of doing arty things in the world, like artists or designers. So they don't really put out large amounts of content as such.
Okay, fair enough. What's one piece of advice you would give your pre-baby self?
Oh my God, I love this question. I could give my baby self so many pieces of advice because I have been quite the crazy goose. I would say don't be a dick to other people. When I was younger, I was just so cruel to people, just so cruel. I mean, I can't even, I don't even want to go there if I said some of the things I did to people because I was just a total bitch.
You're a mean girl. You're one of those mean girls.
I was. I truly was. Yeah, I know. And whatever happened to the mean girl, right? And here I am. But, I had a really bad upbringing. So early in life, I rebelled, and that was an outlet for me, was being mean to people. I would say keep making mistakes because, like, throughout my life, I have made so many mistakes. And at the time, I regretted just about every single mistake that I'd made. But looking back, now that I'm quite a bit older, every mistake that I've made has been actually quite wonderful. And it's served me so well now. So I'm really grateful for all of the mistakes and money I've lost and everything. Probably aside from the people I've hurt, all of the mistakes have been wonderful. And lastly, I would just say look after your health.
Yeah.
Just really look after your body and treat it right. I've always been very much into health and looking after it, but I think that would be one thing I would really suggest even more.
Okay. And the final question is, what is the most useful or useless baby item you have?
Okay, so useless would be all of them. I don't like baby items. I don't like them at all. I'm not like very I'm not a mum. I never got into like all buying all the stuff just because of the consumerism element of it.
Yeah.
And also just the fact that so much of it is just poorly made, and it's made in unethical slave type factories. So
Yeah.
I don't really go there with the baby items. And so a lot of the items that I do have that are useful and even useless have been bought secondhand. I've bought a lot of the things secondhand. I have the cutest pair of little vintage secondhand shoes for when my son was like, 6 months old, except he didn't wear them. And so that was pretty useless. And they cost like $40 from a vintage store.
Oh my goodness.
But a lot of the clothes he gets as well given to him from his from my partner's mum. She knits, and so she knits a lot of clothes, and my family also knit as well. So he gets given a lot of his clothes, which is really nice because they're homemade.
Yeah, and they probably last longer as well rather than those Kmart clothes.
Yeah, they last a long time. He's got a really wonderful knitted jumper right now he loves, and the quality is so much better, and it keeps him so much more warmer than just a little tiny jumper from Kmart or Target or wherever.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for being a part of the podcast this morning. It's been really enjoyable and eye-opening to speak with you.
Thank you so much, and I hope that there has been a little bit of wisdom for your audience in there to
absolutely
to explore. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Busy Mum podcast. Don't forget to let your friends know, and also subscribe to the iTunes channel, and also my socials if you want to see what I'm getting up to. A brand new episode is out every Monday morning, just like clockwork.